Welcome to Relatable Wisdom, where everyday people share the quotes that have shaped their journey, offering you daily doses of perspective that might just shift how you see your own path. Today, I'm joined by Walter Dusseldorp, known as the Dutch mentor. Walter has dedicated his life to helping others unlock their potential in just 15 minutes a day. When he's not coaching leaders or sharing insight on his own podcast, you'll find him soaring through the skies as a helicopter and airplane pilot. Talk about perspective from above. Let's settle in and discover the words of wisdom that have guided Walter's approach to mentorship and life. Tell us your name and what you do.
My name is Walter Dusseldorp. I'm the Dutch mentor. I'm a professional mentor to emerging leaders. I work both in the non-for-profit and for-profit world. My focus is really helping people who have become new leaders or desire to be leaders, to help them what I call, crossing the valley of despair. In other words, going from doing to leading, and providing them with the skills, knowledge, and abilities to become highly effective leaders.
Thank you for accepting my invitation to be on the podcast, Walter.
Thank you. I'm a pleasure to be here, and hopefully we can make a difference to somebody today.
Yeah, of course, I believe we can. What's the quote you want to share with me today?
So, of course, we got lots of quotes, but one that really sticks out to me is what I've written in my last couple of books, is that in just 15 minutes per day, you too can become the leader you want to be, and the leader your team would thrive under.
Wow. You say in just 15 minutes per day, anyone can become the leader they and their team desire. I'm curious, what sparked this 15-minute idea?
So we as people, we love instantaneous gratification. In other words, I see something, I do something, now I know something. The problem is that our behavior doesn't change by just seeing or doing something once. We have to do it over and over and over to create what we call a new normal. So if you practice anything for 15 minutes per day, in about 90 to 120 days from now, you can do it with a certain level of proficiency. Speak a new language, play a new instrument, or in this case, become a more effective leader.
Oh. For me, I'm like, why wasn't 20 minutes selected? Why wasn't 10 minutes selected? Why 15?
Because 20 minutes is about our outer limit that we can stay engaged into anything. 10 minutes is not enough for repetition wise. So 15 minutes sits right in between. You don't want to overdo it, but you don't want to underdo it. And of course, 15 minutes per day, a quarter of an hour per day, makes more sense than saying 10 or 20.
Oh, and in this quote, you emphasize that the idea of consistent daily improvements. And what would be a routine one could walk through in 15 minutes daily to build this stronger leadership habit?
So I'll give you an example. Is that one of the primary functions of leadership is to get to know the people that you lead. I love the people that you lead. So how do you go about doing that? Well, if you spend 15 minutes per day, every day that you work, away from your office, away from your telephone, and you spend quality time with people that work for you, and you get to know them on a genuine level, you'll become a more effective leader because will become a better listener. You get to know them on a more deeper personal level. You get to know and understand what is important to them. And if you take those words and you put them into play, into action, you'll be seen as a more effective leader.
Oh, you get to know the people you're leading.
That's right.
Oh.
It's exceptionally important.
Yeah, in the context of a leader, let's say a leader who, what would be an example of a leader who could give now? Someone who in the corporate world, or someone who is the leader of an organization, or any of those leaders. It's easy to say, okay, these are the people that I lead. But there are quote unquote certain people that are leaders, but they don't have, how do I say that? They have leadership qualities, but they don't have, this is the organization that they're leading. So how do these kind of people go about knowing about the people they lead?
So in any good organization would have an organizational structure. And that should be what we call in about a 7-to-1 ratio. For every 7 frontline people, there should be a team leader. For every 7 team leaders, there should be a supervisor. For every 7 supervisors, there should be a manager. For every 7 managers, there should be a director. Every 7 directors, there should be a vice president. Every 7 vice presidents, there should be a CEO. So thinking about that every single person really only needs to get to know 7 people on a much deeper level. If they do that the right way, you could have real, the team will feel much closer. They feel more unified. Now, as a more senior level person in the organization, you need to, from time to time, leave your office and go to where the work is done. And we call that going on the Gemba. Now, if I'm in charge of an organization of over 2,000 people and they work in 50 different locations, it's impossible for me to get to know everybody. But it is possible for me to go out and be seen and spend time with people on each of the levels. And when you are seen and you hear through their leaders and you take meaningful action based on the things that you hear, you can have an impact, and that builds trust. Trust is the non-negotiable. If there is no trust, nothing else can be there. And through that conversation, you can start engaging the people. And that is really the equation to success, right? High performance is the function of trust multiplied by engagement. And it always starts by getting to know the people that you lead on a deeper level.
Wait. You just dropped something that I want us to dive deeper a bit. You said high performance is trust multiplied by engagement.
Correct.
Wow. So I understand the trust part. I know what it means for the people we're leading to trust, for the team to trust the leader. But what is the engagement part?
So the engagement part is that we, as leaders, we cannot do things to people, but we have to do it with them. So if you have built trust in you, the key to trust is listening and engaging the team members into coming up with solutions. You don't do it to them, but you do it with them. And that's the second part of the responsibility of a leader, is to make sure that you lead through context and not control. You lead through buy-in, not control. So when people get to buy in and they get to experience and they get to collaborate and they get to innovate without the fear of failure, is when you get true engagement. Once you have true engagement, including failing along the way, right? Fail fast, fail forward. That is something that leads to high performance.
Wow. Now, what you said is you do something with them. We want context, not control, right? I'd love for you to give us an example of, two different tasks, right? Where two different scenarios where one is a leader doing something with them in context, and then another one is a leader control, so we can really understand.
Sure, I'll give you an example that everybody can relate to. If you pick up your pen and your dominant hand that you want to write with all of the time, and you write your first name and last name, that feels normal and natural. You can do it eyes closed. It always looks the same. Now the boss comes and the boss says, tomorrow morning, everybody has to write with the non-dominant hand. If you don't do it, you're going to be punished. Well, when the boss leaves, most people will say, listen, writing with my non-dominant is very hard, it's difficult, I don't feel good, it's kind of strange. When the boss turns around, they're likely to go back to the dominant hand until something happens. Then the boss comes, hey, what happened here? I told you could no longer write with your dominant hand, it has to be done with the non-dominant hand. What leadership is this? When the leader comes in, folks, listen, there's been a regulatory change that requires us to not write with our dominant hand, but with our non-dominant hand. And if we adopt that practice over time, we can save lives and make more money. So that's the context behind it, the why behind it, and people can buy into that. And by the way, I'm not going to mandate that we do this overnight. I'm going to support this over the next 30 days. Every day, we're going to spend 15 minutes learning to write and do things with our non-dominant hand. And if we do this consistently together, as difficult as it may be, but we encourage each other, we inspire each other, and in 30 days, we will be that much better. And once we're comfortable with this, we have created this new normal, then we will make it a practice that is the new way of doing it. And that's how you lead through context and not control versus coming at it with a hard stance.
Thank you for sharing that perfect example. Now it all makes sense. At first, I felt like I understood, but I was like, I don't think I really understand it, but now I do understand it. You mentioned something called the new normal.
Yes.
How did you what's the new normal and what does it involve?
So human beings, when we are born from 0 to 6 years old, everything that we learn is taught by or told by somebody else. As a young child up to about 6 years, we don't have any opinions. We don't have any real knowledge. We have nothing. Everything is, we learn how to walk and talk and draw and colors and letters, but it's all done to us. From 6 to 13 years old, we starting to have some thoughts and some opinions, and we start pushing back a little bit. And then in our teenage years, we started using those cultural background and those experiences. We start doing things. In other words, we take action. Out of that action, we create results. Now, in our work, we have the same thing, right? We take action and we have a result. Now, if we are not happy with the result, then we can't go back and do the same thing over and over and over, because that's the definition of insanity, right? Albert Einstein's.
Yeah.
What we need to do is we need to gain new experiences and new perspectives, and we need to take new actions. And those new actions lead to new outcomes. And if we do that consistently, like the 30, 60, 90 days, repeating it with the non-dominant hand, we can create in 60 to 90 to 120 days a new normal. In other words, in 120 days of practicing my non-dominant hand, I'm likely going to be ambidextrous. I can feel just as natural with my left hand as I can be with my right hand. That's what that means.
Yeah. Let's take a quick pause. If you're enjoying this conversation and want more thought-provoking ideas straight to your inbox, join the Relatable Wisdom email list. It's free, quick, and filled with bite-sized insights, inspiring quotes, and behind-the-scenes reflections from our guests. Just head to relatablewisdom.com/join. That is relatablewisdom.com/join, or tap the link in the show notes. And hey, subscribing to the podcast helps more than you think, and it's free. So if you haven't already, hit that follow button wherever you're listening. All right, let's get back to the conversation. Oh, and one of the things you mentioned, I'm looking at, some of the things you mentioned is that you said new normal is composed of three things.
New normal is comprised of experiences, actions, and outcomes. To create new normals, and I can elaborate on that. So to create new normals, we have to learn to be very specific. We have to learn to measure it, and we need to be accountable to that. Right? Without measurement, it's very difficult to gauge how well we're making progress to an outcome.
Okay. Measurement, accountable. Okay.
The focus, measurement, accountability.
Okay. Focus. I get the accountability part. The focus. Okay. The focus on the measurement part. I'd love for you to expatiate on.
Sure. So we as human beings are not very good at multitasking. When I stand in front of a group and I ask the question, who is a multitasker? They all wave their hands, I am. I said, well, all of you got it wrong. No, we can barely walk and chew gum at the same time. So we need to be focused at what we do. So we really need to learn to do one thing well at a time. So, for example, you and I are doing a podcast. We are both focused in our conversation and doing it. Now, if I pick up my telephone and I start doing this, right, I'm looking at this over here now, I can see you, I can hear you, but I'm not really paying attention to you. So I'm not doing you any favors. And I'm looking at my phone, and whoever I'm texting over here, I'm not really doing favors on my phone either, right? So we are very easily distracted by dividing our attention. And that is not good. What we need to do is focus on one thing. Now, what the key is, you need to focus on the thing that matters most first. So one thing I talk about is that, do you have a to-do list? And people say, yeah, I got a to-do list. I say, well, rip it up. Instead, you should have a priority list. Because not everything is weighted equally. If you have 5 things to do, which one is most important? You don't know. They're all to-do things. But if you rewrite it and write down what is 1, 2, 3 in order of priority, the first thing you should be working on is the thing that helps everything else. And then over top of that, you can even say, listen, I need to work on the things that matter most at the time that my brain functions at its best. And we're all a little different. For somebody, it works best at 6 in the morning. Other people do it 10. Other people do it 5 o'clock at night. Well, whenever your brain is optimized, you should do your most difficult work.
Oh, okay. And that reminds me of the quote we started with earlier on, which is, in just 15 minutes a day, you can become a better leader. Because what is happening is that in that 15 minutes, instead of trying to do this and do that, you zoomed in and laser focused, and you get absolute you make absolute progress rather than, oh, I'm working on this 5 hours and you're just every.
That's correct. So interesting enough that if you are working on something with great deep concentration and somebody knocks on the door and you are disrupted from what you're concentrating on, it might take your brain up to 15 to 20 minutes to get back to the same level of thinking. So, and that is waste, right? That's noise. Noise is the biggest robber of our time. So if you want to do deep, meaningful work and it requires your attention, then you should isolate yourself, close the door, and ask for people. Do not knock on my door. Don't call me. Don't text me. Don't do anything unless the building is burning,
Yeah,
right? But you do
yeah,
your best work at 15 to 20 minutes at a time. Then you should get up, walk around, and go back, and work for another 20 minutes, another 20 minutes.
yeah. The other part of the framework you mentioned is measure.
Yes.
How do we measure these things?
So we have to think about it this way. You know, when we measure performance, we improve, right? When we measure improvement on a daily basis, we can actually accelerate. So think about it in your workplace. Often we will see a measurement on how well we did on a monthly or a quarterly basis. Well, 4 weeks went by before you have a monthly report, or 120 days go by before you have a quarterly report. Well, what happens if something goes wrong in between? Right? So we
Yeah,
need to learn. We need to learn to understand what some meaningful measures that matter. So I'll give you a very simple example, and all of us can relate to it. When I get up in the morning, I look at the scale and I look down at that number. That's an outcome number, right? It tells me I'm
yeah,
250 pounds. I can go back every day and look at that number 250, 250, 252, 248, 255, but there's all outcomes. The key is not to only work around the outcome, but I need to say, listen, if I'm 250 pounds and I want to lose 30 pounds, what I really need to be measuring what goes into my mouth, not what it says on that scale. Right? Because
yeah,
if I put myself in what we call a caloric deficit, in other words, I eat less than my daily burn rate, that number should go down. Right?
yeah,
So it's more important how many calories, fats, fibers, and carbohydrates I put in my mouth, because that's going to have an impact on the outcome. Same thing for whatever. If you want something accomplished and you measure, you have an outcome, but you need to understand what goes into it, and that will help you understand. So the equation for that is that y is the outcome is a function of x, meaning x is the variables that you need to be concerned about, not just the outcome.
yeah. What the scenario that is just running through my head is, let's say, a sales leader, right, that has sales people under his team, and if they want to, let's say, make certain amount of figures, I don't know what they're selling. Let's say, whatever product they're selling, it's a good
Yeah.
product, and they say let's say they want to make $100,000 in a month, right?
Yeah.
And now they were like, okay, let's make if their major source of reaching out to customers is cold calls, right? Because that's really common. Then it could be, okay, if we talk to so number of customers, reach out to so number of customers, we'll be able to uh, reach this number. They do the maths and say, okay, this is this based on our conversion rates from the past. This is what would get. Now, there are days where certain things would happen. Things do happen where they don't even reach out to those numbers, and you just realize that, oh, if they're chatting it down, what will happen is that they're like, oh, we've been doing this, we've been doing this. What happened? What went down these 2 days? And if the leader is looking at that number, he can say, okay, what happened, guys? You didn't reach out and all that, because this is the funny scenario that sometimes the team can be doing well. What's the word? Input sometimes input, right? Is sorry, output is a laggy indicator of inputs, right? What I'm saying is
Mhm.
that the results sometimes the action I put today might take 3 months to even show,
Yeah.
right?
Correct.
Like losing weight. If you decide to say you want to reduce what you take in today, it's not going to show on the scale. It might even take 2 weeks or even 4 weeks before the thing starts showing. And so if you keep looking at the outputs, when things start to go wrong, you would not even know until it's even way worse.
Well, and that especially holds true if you make 5 changes at the same time and you have got the results
Yeah,
that you desire. Now I got to continue to do all 5. Well, 4 out of those 5 might not do anything for you, right? So
yeah,
that's why I didn't. That y equals the function of x. I didn't say y equals the function of x, 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 right? Make one
Yeah.
change and measure the outcome. And if that X actually is moving the Y in the direction that you want to, then you have success, and then you zero in on that. Yeah, listen,
Yeah.
when it
Yeah.
comes down to sales, what I'm thinking what you're saying is that I know for 1,000 cold calls that we make, I'll get 120 people to interested. Out of those 120 people, I get 40 people who want to make a phone call. Out of those 40 people, 20 will show up. Out of the 20 people who show up, 10 of them will want to have a follow-up phone call. And out of those 10 who get a follow-up call, 5 will buy something.
Yeah.
Well, so that means if I need to make 20, if I need to make 100 sales, I need to
Yeah.
multiply that times 20. So I need to make 20,000 cold calls to get 100 sales. And that is
Yeah.
something that, but when you go to the sales floor, you should be able to see how many calls were made, because how many calls were made gives you a somewhat predictable outcome. No different than if you go to manufacturing, right? How many pieces do we need to make every single day in order to fill our supply chain? Measurement is the key to success, period. You don't
Yeah.
measure, you're not likely going to be successful.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really, really true. I'm glad you, before you even talked about measuring the inputs versus the outputs, and you mentioned something that is priority, which is very important because there are so many inputs one could measure in business, but not all of them actually lead to the most important goals we want. There are so many things you do in a business, but some of them, they're just, things we have to do to just, get by. They're not really the movers and shakers in the business.
What we call those non-value added steps, right? Waste. We do things because that's how it has been, right? Everybody did it, so I'm just continue to do it. So the question you as a leader always have to ask is that every step we take, is it value adding? Am I willing to pay for it? And if you are not willing to pay for it, but if regulatory is required, you have no choice. But if it's not value adding and it's not regulatory required, then get rid of it. Stop doing it. Right? That's what we call
Yeah,
lean, right? Lean is reducing wasteful steps in the process, right?
yeah,
Six Sigma is Y equals function of X. Is how can I make the same process work in very tight parameters with very little variation over and over and over. So the combination of lean and Six Sigma can help you, and all of it is based on measurement to become more productive and then hopefully more profitable.
yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing these quotes with me and for helping me make sense of it with all these other tips and frameworks you had.
Hey, Wisdom, it was a pleasure being with you, and I wish you much success. And of course, people can always find me on LinkedIn, follow me, and I try to put material out on a daily basis to keep your brain engaged and to make sure that you make effort, a measurable effort on a daily basis to become a better leader yourself.
Yeah. Where can my listeners learn more about some of all those frameworks and all the things that you do?
Again, the two places to go to LinkedIn and connect with me there, or go to my YouTube channel at the Dutch Mentor. I think there's like 500 videos out there at no cost. You can learn lots, and I add things to it on a daily basis.
Yeah, and I should also mention that you do have a website called the Dutchman.
I do, and people can always come visit me there. There's still lots of information available, and you can certainly engage with me from there as well.
I'll be sure to add all the links mentioned in the description and in the show notes, so listeners can just click and go directly to the sites. Thank you so much,
Sounds great.
Walter.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day, and enjoy your day.
You've been listening to Relatable Wisdom, and I've been your host, Wisdom Okonkwo. You've been listening to the podcast where every story, quote, and insight helps you see life a little differently. If you enjoyed today's episode, follow the show on your favorite podcast app and share it with someone who loved the conversation. For more inspiring voices and timeless wisdom, visit relatablewisdom.com. Until next time, keep living, learning, and collecting wisdom that matters most to you.